Well, hi, this is Ken Auerbach from Cartier, Bernstein, Auerbach, and Steinberg. If you or someone you care for has been injured from no fault of their own, please contact Cartier, Bernstein, Auerbach, and Steinberg at myinjuryli.com or call 631-654-4900. Whether auto or work-related, slip and fall, trip and fall, construction accidents, dog bite, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, or various other types of negligence, please contact me at Cartier, Bernstein, Auerbach, and Steinberg by visiting me at myinjuryli.com or call 631-654-4900. I will represent you with integrity and passion. Living in pain from no fault of your own can be emotionally and physically detrimental and affect all aspects of your life. Please contact me, Ken Auerbach, at Cartier, Bernstein, Auerbach, and Steinberg by visiting myinjuryli.com or call 631-654-4900 for an immediate and free consultation and the support and representation you deserve. Well, welcome. Hi, everyone. This is personal injury attorney Ken Auerbach from Cartier, Bernstein, Auerbach, and Steinberg. Welcome back to our program, From No Fault of Your Own. It's so great to be here. It's our goal, as you know, to give you an insider's view of bringing and proceeding with various types of personal injury actions caused by the negligence of some other party. And among these areas that we have explored, and we're going to continue to do so, are car accidents, trip and slip and falls, construction accidents, medical malpractice, dog bites, nursing home neglect, products liability, and many, many other types of situations where people have been negligent and cause injury to a third party, and the serious injuries that really often occur. And through our journey together, hopefully we have removed some of the mystery, uncertainty, and help you feel empowered, knowledgeable, and confident in the process. I am here, of course, with my trusty co-host, my great associate, Amanda Spinner. Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Just got back from South Carolina, sunny South Carolina. It's beautiful down there. I understand we had some rain up here.
We did. We need a little bit of rain, but there was quite a bit.
Well, I understand that. So, listen, we're live today. So if anyone out there has a question, you can call the studio at 631-451-1039. 631-451-1039. It really would be our privilege to answer your questions about personal injury. So, Amanda, let's talk about some new legislation that just came out and was actually signed and went into effect on August 1st, 2023, and affects motor vehicle policies and motor vehicle insurance, and it's called Supplemental Spousal Liability Insurance, and that is coverage for you that is necessary if, in fact, you are married. And let's talk about when it applies, how that works. So given a little bit of a history, New York has now, since 1937 actually, it eliminated what we call spousal immunity. So there was this concept in the law that said that you would not be able to sue your spouse for negligence in New York before 1937. The concept was that people were essentially a husband and wife were one person. And the idea was not to allow for the one person to sue themselves. Well, in 1937, knowing that, of course, that's not the realities of life, and people would be driving vehicles and people would be doing different things, the legislature decided to eliminate that, to eliminate spousal immunity. However, at the same time when they eliminated it, they allowed the insurance law to provide that insurance companies could exclude or didn't have to cover and indemnify and provide coverage to individuals to defend themselves against their spouse if their spouse sued them, and would not have to provide insurance coverage to indemnify them, to allow them to pay the claim if there was a viable claim. So eliminating spousal immunity was one thing that said, well, you should be able to do it and be able to sue someone. But the reality is, well, you have no insurance. How are you going to recover? Right? Mm-hmm. So that's where we were, folks, from 1937, literally up to 2023. And so that gave the insurance companies the ability to decide that they were not going to go ahead and provide for coverage if they didn't want to provide for coverage. Well, that's all changed now. Now, it's changed only in this way. There were, in fact, companies, many companies, that would provide for spousal supplemental insurance. And that would work, Amanda, that if a person wanted it in the past, before the law changed, what would they have to do, actually?
So they would actually have to ask to have that coverage. It wouldn't just be something that's automatic.
That's correct. So it was incumbent upon the individual to say to the insurance company, well, we have, a car, and we have a couple of cars, and we want to make sure that if we're driving the vehicles or my spouse happens to be in the vehicle, that they're covered. So if I'm negligent, not another party, but if I'm negligent, that my spouse can recover just like if it was another person, a person that was unrelated to me. So it was available usually, and I think most insurance companies, I think all the insurance companies had it available, but they did not have to tell you about it.
Right.
And they certainly didn't have to provide it. And so where we're at now is we've sort of evolved from that. And this is a reality. The reality is if you are married to somebody and they're driving a vehicle, well, they should be responsible to indemnify you if they're negligent, like any other person. And why should you not be able to go ahead and be compensated for those injuries? Certainly it wasn't an intentional act on the part of your spouse,
right.
But your spouse is as likely, possibly, to be negligent as some third party in an accident. And so what they've done now is they've changed that. And what they've done is the statute was just passed, and the law went into effect on August 1st, 2023. And what the statute provides now, Amanda, is what?
So now it's going to be basically automatic that you have this supplemental spousal insurance. And if you're single and you're not married, they still will put this on your policy, and you actually will have to opt out. Instead of opting in, now you'll have to opt out.
That's right. So now it's presumed that the coverage will be on the policy, and they will provide it. Now, I have to tell you, I think it's a great idea. I really do, because the reality is this is something if you miss, and now you're driving around, there's many people that are married, and you forget to tell your carrier, hey, I want this additional coverage, or they forget to mention it to you, okay? You're not out of luck. You now still have a pocket to go after. They're required now to provide the insurance. So what happens is now the policy will have it in there. They will, and they're still required on policies, renewals and new policies, though. They're required to give you a form to advise you that they're now adding that insurance coverage, and you have the right to opt out of it.
Right. So the issue here would be for single people, if you don't want to be paying an extra premium for this coverage and you actually are single and not married, you theoretically should not be paying for it. So you would actually have to opt out at this point.
Now, they're supposed to provide a notice to you to opt out.
Yes.
So if it appeared on your policy and they didn't tell you that it was going to be on there and didn't give you the notice, they're going to have a problem because you can report them to the insurance department. But if, in fact, they advised you of that and you fail to opt out of it, then that coverage is going to be on there until your policy is renewed.
Right.
So I think it's very good. I think it's important that we have it, and we should continue to have it. And I know this is a hot topic right now, and we actually have a couple of callers. What we're going to do is we have two callers. We're going to ask that you guys just wait till after the commercial break. So we don't want to cut you off. We want to make sure that we are able to fully answer your questions with regard to this. Now, as far as cost, the cost is going to they estimate be anywhere between $20 to $84 annually.
Right. So like I said, if you're single and you don't want to be paying that extra $20 to $80, you really need to make sure that you're looking at your policy, make sure that they gave you notice of it, and make sure that you're opting out. For people that are married, I think this is great, and no one should be opting out of this if they don't need to. But
Right. So they have to provide that notice to you.
Right.
And they're going to provide the notice to you. And if you're not married and you're not planning on getting married in the near future, opt out of it.
Right.
There's no reason to have it.
Save yourself a little bit of dough while you can.
A little bit of dough. But remember, you got to have this on your list. So your list is, if you are going to get married shortly, before you get married, literally, you better add it.
Yep.
You better add this coverage. Because otherwise, what would happen? Let's give this scenario, Amanda. You get married. You literally now just got married. You're leaving the wedding hall, okay? And your spouse now is driving the vehicle, and your spouse isn't paying attention and happens to hit the car in front of them. It's not the car in front of them who's going to have the problem. Your spouse is the one that was negligent, right?
Correct.
So if you didn't add this coverage, this spousal coverage, after you opt out of it, what happens?
You're not covered for your medicals. You're not covered for anything at that point.
Right. So be thinking, if I'm not married, I don't intend to get married, opt out. You don't need it. If I am married, or if someone is going to be operating your vehicle that you think either you might be getting married to, or maybe it's a business vehicle, and you might say, well, my business vehicle is not going to be driven by my spouse. Well, do you know that for sure?
Right.
Okay, I have a business vehicle. My spouse is allowed to drive it. If I don't have the coverage, got a problem.
Yes.
Okay. So on the other side, we're going to take 2 calls. We have 2 calls. Thank you for your patience, folks. And we'll be back in a moment. Well, hi. If you're just joining us, this is personal injury attorney Ken Auerbach, here with my great associate and trusty assistant, my sidekick, my co-host, Amanda Spinner. And you're on our program from No Fault of Your Own. We are live, and we're exploring important issues in personal injuries caused by accidents. If you call into the studio right now, it's 631-451-1039. And we do have 2 callers waiting. Amanda, what are they going to get?
Very excited. You guys will get a From No Fault of Your Own t-shirt.
Okay, and we just got a new batch. And so what you'll do is you'll tell us, do you want small, medium, large, or extra large? They run a little large. Okay, so you'll let us know that after you come on to the show. And if you or someone you care about has been injured as a direct result of someone else's negligence, contact us at myinjuryli.com or call 631-654-4900. It would be our privilege to fight to get you justice. That's myinjuryli.com or call 631-654-4900 for a free consultation. We'll come to you. We'll go to a hospital. We'll go anywhere where you need us to be. Consultations are free on personal injury cases. Doesn't cost you a dime unless we recover. And if you do retain us, it will not cost you anything. We'll lay out expenses. You will not have to pay us those back if we're not successful. And also, as far as a fee goes, you don't pay us a dime unless we are successful. Listen to our program, Amanda. When is that?
Every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m.
So we're going to pick up our first call. We have Joel on line 1 from Rockville Center. And Joel, are you there?
I'm here and very excited to be speaking on your program.
Well, we're so glad to have you here, Joel.
Hello, Joel.
And so tell us, Joel, you have a question for us?
Well, I have to tell you, I've been listening to the program, and I did have a question that I needed clarifying on the spousal insurance issue that I read in the Newsday today.
Okay.
And you seem to have explained it rather well. My concern was that did I really need it? And if I didn't take it, would I still be covered for my injuries? And my understanding is at this point, if I don't take it and my wife gets into an accident, then I won't be covered for injuries.
That's right. I mean, that's very good. You were listening to us, and well, so you've really earned your T-shirt. In fact, you've earned your T-shirt so well. What do you think, Amanda?
I think we might give you 2.
His wife's got to get one too. Then
100%.
So
you guys.
The important thing, if you think about it, is this: if your spouse is negligent. So picture the scene. There's a couple of scenarios, right? Your spouse could be driving a vehicle right now, and then if she was rear-ended, you were stopped at a light, well, you still have a claim, but your claim is against the vehicle behind you. It's for the issue where your spouse actually, let's say, rear-ends somebody and you're in the vehicle. Then your coverage does not necessarily apply because under the law, the way it existed, the insurance companies had the right to offer it to you and you could pay for it separately, but they weren't required to give it to you. So there would be people driving cars, they wouldn't know one way or another, and there would be an accident. And if their spouse was fully responsible, it was a real problem because now there wasn't coverage. Now, there was some issues that we don't really need to talk about, but if, let's say, your spouse was only in that situation 50% responsible, as long as they were 50% responsible, but the other driver was at least 1% responsible in a car accident, you would be able to still recover from the other policy. This sort of gets past that problem now. So, yes, the answer is if you are married. And I would say to you is if you're married and even if you're separated, make sure you have this coverage because you might get back together. You may have your spouse in the car with you. You might be good friends. There's all different things that could occur, but we would want to make sure that you have that coverage. So have the coverage, make sure you get that. And if you are going to get married, now in this case, Joel, would you tell us how long you've been married?
I've been married 51 years.
51 years. What is that?
But it feels like 100.
Oh, come on. Joel, I have this. What is your wife's first name, Joel?
I'm sorry. My wife says she thinks it's 1,000.
Okay, I hear you. And what is your wife's first name?
Denise.
All right. Well, listen, Denise, of course, at this point, okay, kind of knows everything about you. And she knows enough to make sure that you picked up the phone and you called us because in case somebody was negligent, make sure that you guys are both protected and you're covered. And it's really very, very critical and very important. When in doubt, it's $20 to $84 a month, okay, a year, I should say.
Worth it.
It's worth it, okay? And so in your case, you're married, you do it. So do it.
I'm not going to opt out.
Yeah, okay. So absolutely, you should do it.
I think that's a good point, though. If your policy right now is not ready to be renewed or anything like that, you'd actually have to call yourself and say, I want this coverage at this point.
Right. So they're going to have to give you the right on a new policy or a renewal policy to have it. But take a look at your policies, folks out there. And I'm glad, obviously, Joel, you raise a good question is take a look at your policy right now.
Right.
Because it's not automatically going to be on it. You're going to have the automatic right on a new or renewal policy. But I don't believe the statute says that if you're in the midstream,
right.
From what I've read, that they're going to have to call you up and say, okay, you can have the coverage as of now.
Right.
When it does renew, okay, or if it's a new policy, they'll have to do that. So take a look at it. It'll say on there spousal supplemental insurance. And if you have any doubts, you could send it over to us. We'll take a look at it. We'll make sure that your policy actually provides for it. We don't get paid by, for people buying these additional coverages. But what we do like is when we're able to say to our client, you're going to get compensated. You're going to get compensated appropriately. So, Joel, what we're going to do is we're going to send you those T-shirts. We're going to send one to your wife, Denise. Okay. We should probably actually send her two. Okay, because she's been married to you 51 years, but we really, really appreciate your call. Thank you so much for calling in.
And thank you for the information. It was outstanding.
You're welcome. All right, we do have a call. Well, we had a call. We lost our call. I'm sorry. Our second call. If you want, you could call back into the station. We'd love to speak to you and try to give you any information that you might want, and it would be our privilege. So at this point, Amanda, I think let's sort of recap, okay, and recap kind of what we've gone over here with regard to the spousal insurance and any additional issues that you think might be necessary for our listeners to hear.
Yeah, so I think just with Joe's call, it was really important that if you have a policy right now that's either not new or not ready to be renewed and you want to get this spousal liability policy, you really need to call on your own and check your policy and see if you're able to opt in right now. And if you're single and you don't want to be paying for this spousal liability, make sure that you're calling your insurance company and opting out.
Right. And so what I always tell people is pay attention to the details of this because what happens is, unfortunately, your insurance company, their job is not to make sure that you get it right.
Yeah.
And I might argue that they should have the job to get it right, but they don't see it as their job. And we want to make sure that if something happens to you, that you do have that insurance, that you are protected.
And as always, please get SUM, supplemental uninsured motorist policies over 25,000. Please, we're begging you. We've begged you on the radio a million times, but please have yourself protected and have yourself have enough coverage.
I know. We've had cases most recently, Amanda, where people have had significant injuries, and their own policy is a $25,000 minimum insurance, and the defendant, who is negligent, has a $25,000 minimum insurance. And what I tell people is the reality is someone who has a 25 policy, you're not going to get money from them individually. It's not happening.
Right.
Okay. And even if it was possible, if they had assets, it would take you years upon years. But who's driving around with a $25,000 policy that has assets? And if one really looks at it, there's all kinds of exemptions for recovering for judgments, which are hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think it's $150,000 per person if it's a husband and wife. And so you're not going to recover it against somebody personally. Protect yourself. Have the coverage.
Right.
Don't drive around not knowing, because now you're relying on a stranger to go ahead and do what you otherwise could have done and have assurance of and have peace of mind.
Exactly. If you don't want someone to be carrying a 25 policy, don't yourself carry a 25 policy and then not have yourself covered. So
right. It's hard to, I think that's a good point. It's hard to be annoyed at the other person for not having enough coverage if you drove around with the same amount of coverage.
Exactly.
And we understand it can be expensive, but have at least really $100,000 worth of coverage. Protect yourself and protect other people. Okay, so we'll see you on the other side. Great show, Amanda.
Well, hi, if you're just joining us, this is Amanda Spinner on the program from No Fault of Your Own, personal injury attorneys from Cartier, Bernstein, Auerbach, and Steinberg. And we're here exploring the most important issues in personal injury caused by accidents. If you or someone you care about has been injured as a direct result of someone else's negligence, please contact us at www.myinjuryli.com or call us at 631-654-4900. We would be privileged to fight to get you justice.
Well, we're so glad that you are back with us here today, and we are lucky, fortunate, blessed to have on the show again from Long Island Abate, American Bikers for Awareness, Training, and Education, the great Chris Peckins. Chris, are you there? Chris, are you there?
How are you, sir?
Well, we're doing fine. Chris, how are you?
Excellent. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
How was your summer?
It went fast. It was a blink, let me tell you. A lot of things, very busy, doing a lot of different events, trying to spread motorcycle awareness and keep motorcyclists safe.
You know, I got to tell you, Chris, one of the things that you do is you send out notifications to the public when there's an accident, and an accident on a motorcycle, involving a motorcycle. And I think that's a really good thing to do, Chris, because for me, when I see it and when that comes out, the first thing, of course, I want to do is pray for that person. But the next thing is it just sort of makes me more aware. It makes me aware, hey, these things are going on. Pay attention. You know, heads up, and heads up to the drivers out there, but also heads up, of course, to the people on the motorcycles to make sure that they're being as safe as possible also. But I think that's a really good thing that you do. And so I want to compliment you on that, and just keep that up, because it really does something for me. And, you know, when I go out and I see one of those warnings, Chris, it just makes me a little bit extra careful. You know, I'm careful all the time, but a little extra careful, because sometimes you let your guard down, and you let your guard down for a second and bad things happen, you know? So, Chris, what I'd like to do today is kind of get an update. And so we've talked about a lot of different things on the program. Chris's organization is really one of, I would say, the foremost organization on Long Island that they make sure that anything that can be done to try to make it safer on the roads for both motorcycle riders and operators, but also for drivers, they step up and they do that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's one of my favorite things about having Chris on the show, actually, is he doesn't just focus on motorcyclists. His focus is on everyone being safe on the road. So, Chris,
I've just heard it seems like a recent rash of motorcycle accidents in the last few weeks. Is that just me thinking that, or does it seem like it's been like that over the last few weeks?
It's definitely been a lot more, I'll say, activity in the last few weeks. Some of it is driver error. Some of it is motorcyclist error, obviously. In order for us to be safe, we have to ride safe and we have to be aware. Sometimes things happen, as you know, but if we put ourselves in a proper position, these things shouldn't happen as much. And I think with social media, things that happen are out there faster, so people hear about it more.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a lot of bad things about social media, but some of the really good things are that, when you're in your own little cocoon and living your life, you may not otherwise see something. You may not see it. You may not know it, but it's happening out there. And I think by providing the information and providing the knowledge that when things do happen, Chris, I think it makes people more aware. They take the extra look, hopefully. Look once, look twice. And a lot of times you can look 3 and 4 times because sometimes there's a delay between you looking the first and the second time. I think that's another mistake that people do make. They'll look once, twice, and then they won't look back. If you're at a place, sometimes you could be at a place where there's a bend, and it could be 2 seconds that a vehicle or a motorcycle could be coming up, and that could be the difference, of course, between serious injuries and life and death.
Absolutely, totally agree.
So, Chris, any new developments in legislation going on that you're aware of that you could provide our listeners with?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We locally in Suffolk County, we just had passed, thanks to Legislative Nick Caracappa, S5430, which is it holds tow truck drivers accountable for accident cleanup, which is a threefold thing because it helps protect motorists and their vehicles from running over debris in an accident. It also protects motorcyclists, which, again, can not only damage the vehicle, but even ourselves as riders if we run across debris from an accident. And also it's a you want to call it a quality of life thing where if there's a serious fatality or something like that and they don't clean up the debris from the accident, now the victims or the survivors are reminded of that on a regular basis. So it's a threefold thing. So Nick helped put that together. So now if the tow truck companies do not clean up, they're held accountable and they can be fined. So hopefully that helps.
And so when you say clean up, right? So an accident occurs. I assume you're talking about if there were parts of the vehicles lying on the road, glass, metal parts, plastic parts. And so the tow truck driver, before they leave the scene, is required to pick that stuff up the best that they can?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's an interesting thing because a lot of times in the past you would go to a scene and there would be parts lying all around. And so really, if you think about it, Amanda, that creates another problem in itself, right?
Right. You're probably creating other accidents because I've seen a lot of times where I'm on the LIE and there was an accident and there's glass or there's, tires or whatever on the side of the road and people are swerving out of the way to move and it can cause other accidents.
And Chris, I think it's good too because sometimes, you say, well, all right, it's just these small little parts. But the reality is, depending on where it is, you as the driver, if you're coming upon it, you may go to avoid it. You may turn away from it. Maybe it wouldn't have been a big deal if you drove over it, but your eye catches it, and your instinct is to do what, right, Chris? It's to turn away or turn real quick. Let's say you're coming down the road, and it's a motorcycle. Let's say it's a 2-lane highway, and there's a motorcycle maybe next to you, a 2-lane going in your direction, and you as the driver, you turn real quick, and you can obviously injure the motorcyclist. The motorcyclist could hit that material. The motorcyclist could try to avoid that material because the reality is, Chris, right, when you're on 2 wheels, you're more susceptible to things that you could strike in the road and things that could happen, right?
Absolutely.
So, Amanda, I think this is really good legislation. Kudos to Legislator Caracappa.
Yes.
We've had Nick Caracappa on the show.
Yes, several times.
And he was ahead of the curve, if you recall, when the roads were like a war zone on the expressway and on the parkways. He was ahead of it, and he got right out in front and made a big difference. Mm-hmm. Okay, made a big difference, right? There was money there that was sitting there that wasn't released, And he came on our show, and he had really put pressure on the state and said, this is ridiculous. We're taxpayers here. This shouldn't be happening. So really glad to hear this. Is this legislation now pending, or what's the status of it?
Nope. This was passed. This is been enacted. This is now law in Suffolk County. And also Senator Mario Matera is taking it to the state level, and hopefully it'll get passed in the state level.
Oh, that's terrific.
That's great.
Too.
Yeah.
That's terrific too. And what we always say on this show is that we don't think that good things should depend upon what party one is in or not in. You should be doing good things because it's good for everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally agree.
Right. As we're driving down the road, and our lives are depending upon it, it shouldn't matter what our political persuasion is or any other persuasion. It should be that we're taxpayers here. We should certainly have the right, as best as possible, to get home safely. So, well, that's a really good thing, Amanda.
Yes, I think that's great.
And so, Chris, we're going to talk to you more on the other side. I know there's some other legislation, and it really is always our privilege to get you on the show, Chris, because you're always coming on with some goodies. And when I say goodies, Chris, you're actively pursuing things.
Right.
And I know, like an organization like ABATE, and I would strongly support anybody that supports them. I really ask you to consider joining their organization. Chris will tell you on the other side how to join their organization, because they do make a difference. And it's cost you really pennies to do that. But look at just this alone, having someone like Chris pushing for it and saying it, if it saves one person, boy, what a great job, Chris. So thank you for coming on, Chris. We'll get you on the other side. Well, welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is personal injury attorney Ken Auerbach here with my great co-host Amanda Spinner. You're on our program From No Fault to Your Own, and we're exploring some of the most important issues in personal injuries caused by accidents. And if you or someone you care about has been injured as a direct result of someone else's negligence, give us a call at 631-654-4900. That's 631-654-4900, or you could get us on the web at myinjuryli.com. It's myinjuryli.com. It would be our privilege, really, to fight to get you justice. All of our consultations on personal injury cases are always free. And listen to our program every Monday from 4 to 5 p.m. as we explore these issues. We do have a sponsor here today, Amanda. Who's that?
Yes, we are sponsored today by PD's Taps and Caps, which will be on South Country Road in East Patchogue. They will be opening in approximately 3 to 4 weeks. We've actually talked about them on the show before, and if you do go for their opening, you will get a From No Fault of Your Own t-shirt if you mention that you heard us on here. And I believe they will be giving out some free drinks as well.
Yes, they did tell us that, and we'll keep you guys apprised out there, all you people and ladies and gentlemen, and it really would be a great place to go to. I think it's going to be a local place. It's going to be a fun place.
Yes.
And PD's got 1,800 hats, literally. I mean, it's unbelievable. The place is going to really be special.
And before we get back to our guest, I'd like to shout out to Dana from Massapequa and her soon-to-be-born baby boy. Thank you guys for listening. We love your support.
Yeah, we love it. And Dana's baby boy is listening too, I hope.
Yes, he's listening from inside the belly.
We look forward to his call-ins too. We do have another shout out. Dan and Rosie are out there, and Dan and Rosie were listening to our program today on spousal insurance and the need for it. And interestingly, they know that they do need to have it because they are married, but their son, of course, who has a policy, who isn't married, they were able to advise him now that he needs to opt out of that when he gets it.
Yep.
So he could save himself that $20 to $84, or whatever it is. That's an approximation, folks. We don't know the exact amounts because it depends on your insurance company. So we'd like to get back to now Chris. And Chris was talking gave us some very good information on the legislation that was passed here that requires tow truck companies in Suffolk County to provide for the service of cleaning up the road after. I think that's critical. Great, Chris, and it's great that you're really on that. And kudos again to legislator Nick Caracappa for sponsoring that and for all of the legislators passing that.
Yes.
So kudos to them, all of them, right across the board. And Mario Matera, we're really very happy that you're sponsoring legislation like that statewide.
Yes.
Because that's something that should be in the state legislation. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to have all around. So, Chris, so that's the first one. I know there was some other legislation that you were talking about. And so could you tell us about that?
Sure. We have another legislative resolution that's called Resolution 1562, which was passed. That was from legislator Leslie Kennedy. What that does is it enables motorcycles to park in clean class parking spots at county facilities. Now, motorcyclists are considered fuel-efficient vehicles. We are allowed in the HOV lane, so this permits us to park in county facilities in the clean pass vehicle parking spots.
Oh, that's terrific. So basically, let's just kind of really flesh that out. So if there's one of these clean pass parking spots, right? So it's specifically for vehicles that are considered clean pass. I assume they have to have the vehicles themselves would have to have the sticker on it. But would the motorcycle be required to do that? I would assume all motorcycles should be able to go in there, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I think that's important for a couple of reasons. I think it's important because it's important for motorcycle riders to know that, but it's also important, folks, if you're out there and you see a motorcycle in that spot, okay, they have the right to be there. When is that legislation going to be before the legislature for voting?
That has been passed already.
Okay, is it in effect?
Yes, it is in effect. Absolutely.
Okay, so everybody out there, again, you learn things in our program for the first time, I would hope. And so if you do see motorcycles in there and they're in those clean passes, they have the right to be there. And, it's a good thing because remember, a motorcycle, again, is not burning a lot of gas. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's very fuel efficient. And so they should really have the right to be there and to do that. And so another good job, Chris. Another good job. So we're happy that you're doing that. Chris, what's going on with equipment? Any updates on any type of new equipment or things that can make motorcyclists safer?
Well, there is a various amount of equipment that's out there. They have actually airbag-style vests and jackets. Okay, which upon a situation or a crash where you would be ejected off your motorcycle, they automatically would inflate.
Wow.
It's not real big because it is pricey right now, but it is a step in a direction for safety. They also have now, which I've just read up on, is smart helmets. Believe it or not, they have the built-in brake lights, which some of them had for a while. They feel the inertia because a motorcycle can stop pretty quick and doesn't necessarily have to use the brake, so the brake lights don't get activated because the engine can decel the vehicle quickly, just to load the engine. So this feels the slowdown and automatically kicks the light on the helmet. And they also have front and rear facing cameras built into some of them now.
So wait, explain this to me. As the motorcycle slows down, what happens with the helmet?
There's a sensor in the helmet that'll detect the deceleration. And it operates the light on the back of the helmet as a brake light. So if you say you just release the throttle and decelerate in gear, your motorcycle is going to go from 40 to 30 miles an hour rather quickly. So feeling the deceleration, the light on your helmet will actually go on. That's
a great idea.
Yeah.
Right? Because you could, on the motorcycle, instead of hitting the brakes, right? Because on your brakes on the actual motorcycle, oftentimes you can decelerate. And on a motorcycle, when you're decelerating, it might be harder for a person driving a car to maybe pick that up. And now what's happening is the helmet itself now is detecting that. And even though you haven't hit the brakes, it's detecting the slowdown. And now the helmet lights up, has a brake light, and that person behind you now sees that light. Doesn't have to wait now until the light on the actual motorcycle comes on because there's no actual braking. It's a deceleration, correct?
Absolutely correct. Yeah.
That's a great thing. Well, we really encourage people, if you can, get one of those. Get one of those helmets, and we would like to encourage any of the distributors out there and manufacturers of these, make these things affordable. Make them affordable, okay? I think, Chris, if something like that was reasonably affordable, I think most motorcycle riders would get one of those. What do you think?
Absolutely, I totally agree. Same thing with the front and rear facing cameras. As you know, as an attorney, any kind of evidence in any kind of situation helps, whether it be positively or negatively, depending on the side of the fence. So even with the cameras, that's very important as well.
Oh, I think that's really good. I think cameras are terrific on there. Lately, I've been saying to my clients that it's a really good thing if you do have a camera on the dashboard. It could really help you. And if you had one in the back, too, that could help you also. Because a lot of times, Chris, what we get the, they slammed in their brakes. Well, meanwhile, if you had a camera on that, you'd be able to know, well, did they slam in their brakes or was the person coming up behind you way too fast? And then there's this other idea, sometimes the vehicle right behind you, sometimes there can be two impacts, and they like to say, well, no, it wasn't me, the vehicle, right? It was only the vehicle 3 pushed me into it. Well, maybe sometimes there's 2 hits, and you could pick those things up. So I love things like that, Chris, because it eliminates the he said, she said type of thing, and it's now it says, whether it's a video or whether it's a recording. Now it becomes objective evidence, and now we're able to get justice however that justice sorts out. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person if you happen to be negligent, but unfortunately, some people who make mistakes don't take responsibility.
Yes.
Absolutely true.
So listen, Chris, we got to get you back on again. I know this was a short one today, my friend, but you gave us some great information, Chris. Excited to hear what's going on. And folks, listen. Be safe out there, okay? Let's just be safe here and make sure that we share the roads safely with motorcyclists. Those motorcyclists, please drive safely, okay? Drive safely for you and for everybody else out there, too. So we will see you next week on our program From No Fault to Your Own.
See you next week.